All right, let's change gears. Who's taking it up next?
Taking it up, we're talking about Russia. So there was some FUD a little while back. We were wondering whether Russia is going to be banning crypto. We had the central bank is fighting with Treasury. There are all these different sectors in the Russian government that were at odds with each other in how they wanted to regulate cryptocurrency, and a ban was on the table. So the Russian government has instead now decided to regulate them, and Russia is the 11th largest economy. I think it's number 3 for mining of Bitcoin. And it's very interesting that they're deciding to go this regulation route rather than the outright ban. So a lot came out in this report from Russia. I'm going to throw it to you, Will, for your take on all of this. Is this good news? I mean, is crypto being absorbed into the Russian system? But is that good or bad?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I've thought about it 2 ways. The first time I saw this headline, I was like, yes, like another country is adopting Bitcoin or allowing it to be at least a currency. They're not going to seize it. They're not going to ban it. They're not going to like strangle it to death. They're just going to regulate it. That's a good thing right off the top. But then I thought about the United States and how we've just basically passively allowed people to invest in cryptocurrencies, passively allowed them to own Bitcoin. It's just property, right? At the end of the day, it's property. And of course, there's regulations and restrictions around it with SEC and like ICOs and stuff like that. But for the most part, owning Bitcoin and owning crypto in the United States is not something that the government has jumped into yet. They're looking toward it in the future. And that made me think about this situation with Russia. If the United States went the path of Russia here and created like systems for regulating crypto in this sort of way, there would be tremendous frustration and uproar. So I don't know if it's like a good thing in the long run, because if there are departments in Russia, they're basically saying like, you can own this coin, you can't own this coin, you can do this with this coin, you can do this with this coin. You have to have a license to own this coin. You don't for this one. That's not a good thing in the long run, right? That's not what Bitcoin or crypto is about. So I do think that there needs to be like a little better understanding of where this goes in the long term. Again, it's not a perfect correlation because the United States basically outlaws tons of different coins. So we're already in that step. But for the most part, you can buy Bitcoin on Cash App. It's pretty easy and you don't need to have some sort of license to be able to do it. Across the board, though, I think that there's some really nice points in this piece from Anna. Russia is now accepting it as a currency. India did that just a few weeks ago. In the United States, seems to be just letting it passively be adopted across the board. That comes after China this last summer banned crypto basically in every single way. They banned mining, they banned trading, they banned peer-to-peer transactions for crypto. So we're kind of seeing like this east-west divide, but I didn't suspect that Russia or India would fall on the side of the United States and on the side of the Western powers. So the political map is definitely getting a little tossed up in the air from what we're used to. Jen, I want to throw this one to you. What was your take on when you saw this headline last night?
Yeah, really similar to yours, Will. And it was interesting that they're looking at banks as to be the intermediary between retail investors who want to participate in crypto and all of the laws and taxes that are going to go on. So when I was reading this, I was like, okay, well, who's going to determine who gets a license and how are people going to know how to report their taxes? I think I'm frozen now, but can you still hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay, well, I will finish my thought, and then we can move on.
Just imagine.
So, I know. Just imagine me doing a lot of grand hand gestures. So it was really interesting to me that the banks are going to take on this responsibility in this proposal. And they'll be responsible for letting customers know how to file their taxes and how to operate within the law. But Will, I actually had a question for you. You were really bullish on India's news, and now it feels like you've changed your mind. And so I'm curious to know why.
I'm a nuanced man. I can change my opinion here and there. And I would say that I do think it matters that we take a look at the long run, and the small victories are big. Like that's a nice thing to have. But in the long run, the point of Bitcoin, the point of crypto is to allow people to have total financial sovereignty. And a lot of the rules that are being trot out by governments right now restrict the full breadth of freedom that crypto enables. It's probably just how it's going to be. Like you're not going to live in a situation or a scenario where everything is exactly as you want it. India has like a 30% tax on crypto that seems to be in line with what equities trade at or are taxed at in India. Russia obviously is going to get its pound of flesh in there as well. United States at some point with this new Biden administration regulation, everyone's kind of wondering what's going to happen there. They're going to get their pound of flesh. So I've changed my opinion a little bit. I've tempered it a little bit. But I'll throw it up to Naomi.
Yeah, I
Or
just
Zach.
think that what you were talking about, Jen, about banks being intermediaries is important to dig into, because the way they're talking about this, they just want to use them as control mechanisms to verify users' identities,
Totally.
check transactions, get taxes from all of this. Because when it comes down to it, banks actually participate in a huge amount of money laundering. Banks in America get fined all the time for allowing all this money laundering. So it's not that the governments around the world are recognizing that banks can stop this. It's saying like, well, the banks will enable this. We can get a huge amount of money and fines from them. And we can also somewhat control the process by getting a bunch of information. They're not curtailing this behavior by adding these intermediaries. But I'll throw it to you, Zach, for last words.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out Naomi. I think, these are two sort of major FUD clouds that have evaporated with India and Russia now, and it's interesting to see how Bitcoin is going to respond going forward.